Welcome back to another episode of the Paycheck, the 450th best hip hop podcast in the world. I'm your host, Justice. I used to be Pay, and today we got a few things on tap. We're going to talk about some hot takes that I asked you guys for on TikTok. A whole bunch of people left some comments, so we'll get to those, and I'll give you some of my own hot takes. Also, we're going to talk about why there may be no superstars for rap coming into the future. That's something that I've been talking about for a while now, but I really want to break it down a little bit further today. And then I'm going to end it off with some awards, my own personal hip hop awards to end the year. So if you're watching this or you're listening to this, I want you to do two things for me. I want you to listen and not just hear me because, oftentimes people hear what other people are saying, but they're not really listening. And the other thing is I want you to respond to the stuff I'm saying and not react. Because again, a lot of times when people hear something, again, not listening to it, they hear it, they react to it, and they don't respond. See, when you respond, you actually take your time, understand what that person said, and then address it with your own facts or your own opinions or your own whatever outlook on the situation. Because at the end of the day, most of this stuff is opinionated because we're talking music. Almost all of it is. So I want you to respond to what I'm saying and not react. And I want to hear your responses in the comment section as well. So let me know how you feel about some of the stuff I'm saying in this specific video. But firstly, we're going to get into your guys' hot takes to end the year of 2024. So the first one I see here is that Like That is better than Not Like Us. Now, obviously, they're talking about the songs Like That with Future, Travis Scott, and Kendrick Lamar, and then obviously Kendrick's song Not Like Us. Now, personally, I think I understand where this person's coming from. Like, if I were to take both songs, Not Like Us and Like That, and put it into a vacuum, I would say that Like That's probably the better song. But because of the context of Not Like Us, not even just the fact that he's dissing Drake, but just how the whole situation played out and the entire context of this being arguably one of the biggest rap beefs of all time, and this really just being like the bow on top of that present, really sealing things off. I just think I prefer Not Like Us, even though I probably will listen to Like That more often, just like as a song, maybe. I don't know. It's pretty close, but I think I still prefer Not Like Us just because of the sentiment around the song, even though Like That does have, the shots at Drake and Cole. I think that Not Like Us it just means more. So I think I'm going to always side and favor that song. But in terms of like just a song in a vacuum, sure, I really don't mind that take. The next one is Future dropped a lot of mid. Features in production carried heavy with We Don't Trust You and We Still Don't Trust You. Mixtape Pluto wasn't all that. Now, I disagree. I see where you're coming from a little bit, though, specifically on Mixtape Pluto. His performances on We Don't Trust You and We Still Don't Trust You, I highly disagree. I think there's a lot of really good Future throughout those projects. It's not like the craziest stuff we've ever heard from him, but I will say on the Mixtape Pluto part, that was actually, I'm going to give you guys my own hot takes as well. That was actually one of my hot takes throughout the year. Mixtape Pluto wasn't good to me. It wasn't good. It wasn't a bad album, or mixtape, I should say. It wasn't bad. It wasn't the worst thing to be released in 2024, but it felt a little lazy. It felt a little just kind of put together. It felt like Future had a little bit of creative burnout because there was some good stuff on there, but as a whole, I felt like that project was very, very weak. So I disagree with you when you say Future dropped a lot of mid. I still think his performances on We Don't Trust You and We Still Don't Trust You were good, but I will say that Mixtape Pluto was very mid to me. I thought it was just an album that kind of came and went, and that's one of my hot takes of the year, so this person actually got to it before I did. People who are really into the Drake and Kendrick beef care more about feeling like a part of the culture than actually being in that culture. Feeling like a part of the culture than being in that culture. I guess I get what you're saying. Like, people want to be a part of something, and that's kind of just like human nature, right? That's why so many people identify so heavily with like MAGA, because it gives them an identity outside of just being regular Joe Schmo, right? When I put the red hat on, it makes me stand out. It makes me, it means something. So I guess I kind of get what you're saying when you say like they care more about feeling like they're a part of something than actually being a part of it. But I don't know if I would agree with that completely. Somebody said Eternal Take Two is the album of the year. That's just wrong. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I think Eternal Take Two is one of the worst albums to be dropped in 2024. It's not garbage, but like, it's just not good, especially coming from someone like Uzi. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to skip some, focus on the ones with more likes. The underground is better than the mainstream music. That's just kind of a take that's always existed, and it's really subjective, especially because like the underground is vastly, like, that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing to put underneath an umbrella. Like, what do you mean by underground would be my next question, because if you're talking specifically about that bubble that we like refer to as underground, like, not necessarily Ken Carson and Destroy Lonely because they're like really big now, but like that type of bubble, like Netspin, Osama Sun, those guys. Is that what you mean by underground? Because if that's what you mean, then I would say hell no. I don't think that specific genre of underground music is better than mainstream music right now. But I will say that some of the stuff that's bubbling up might be better than mainstream this year, especially because there wasn't that much going on. Somebody said that Netspin is one of the worst rappers of the 2020s, and then somebody actually ratioed the comment with coldest take ever. I'm not going to give a hard stance on Netspin as an artist because I don't really know that much about him, but from what I've heard, it's just not very good in my opinion. I don't know, like, just to me personally, I can't resonate with it. Somebody said King Von alone King Von, what the hell? King Von was popular because of his body count, not for his talent. I majorly disagree. I think they played hand in hand. Yes, obviously, him being big boogeyman, scary King Von was part of his branding and his image, but his music was just genuinely good as well. Like Take Her to the O or Took Her to the O was a big song, yes, because of the storytelling about what happened or what he was talking about, but just genuinely he was dropping good music as well. So it's not just like, oh, he was just famous for being a body man. Again, I'm going to start giving you some of my hot takes as well. My first one is that J. Cole's apology was the right choice. Now, this is still kind of controversial. I don't know how. J. Cole's apology was clearly the right choice because he just wasn't ready to go to war the way that Kendrick and Drake were ready to go to war. And I don't think that he would have fit into this battle. Is it like something that looks bad for him? Sure, yeah, why not, whatever. But like him entering this beef in the road that it went down would not have made any sense. Like, J. Cole's not going to go after your family. He's not probably going to mention your wife and your kids. He's not going to do any of that. He's not going to call you something kind of crazy. He's not going to accuse you of anything that you haven't done. Like, J. Cole just would not have fit in this scenario. And I know, again, he raps about being the baddest dude, being the best rapper. Nobody can touch him on the mic. But that's just not his game. Like, that's just not something that J. Cole, the character, would have actually fit into. Now, I will say that if I could go back and change things, I would make him never drop 7 Minute Drill. Not because it's a bad song, but just because you stepped your foot into the ring. Like, right? Like, if he would have never entered the ring and just never said anything, people still would have been calling him soft, saying, oh, you want to be the best. How about you do this? But it's just the fact that he stepped in and then stepped out that makes it so bad. Because if he never stepped in, you wouldn't have had the argument of him, actually entering the field and then cowering away, because people are like, oh, he got ran off by Kendrick. Kendrick scared him. Kendrick didn't even say anything. Kendrick never addressed Cole past like that. Past like that, there was never real, besides like Cole foul, I don't know why he's still pretending. Besides that, there was never real smoke for Cole. So it's not like he saw Kendrick drop this song and then he was like, oh my God, like none of that happened. J. Cole just wasn't willing to risk whatever friendship he has with both parties, obviously independently of each other, for internet approval. He just wasn't. And I know it sounds corny. Oh, it's rap culture, it's competition. Yeah, but this was not competition. This was the evisceration of Drake. This was Kendrick trying to take his head off. So I'm still going to stand by it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to love it. I know people who hate J. Cole were like salivating at the fact that he pulled out and he apologized. So y'all can be happy, I guess, but whatever. I still think it's the right thing to do, at least on J. Cole's front. And I will say this. This is one of my favorite takes. I think Family Matters as a diss track beats 95% of rappers ever. I really do believe that. I think Family Matters was a banger. And not only just the fact that Kendrick responded with something that was probably better and not like us, the way that he shut down the song, which is something I'm going to get to later in this podcast episode, the way that he was able to effectively shut down Family Matters was brilliant. Him dropping Meet the Grams 30 minutes after it came out was brilliant, because it made people get caught up in the moment of what Kendrick just did to Drake's release rather than letting that sit. Because if Family Matters was able to sit on the people and people were able to listen to it, play it back again for a few days, do some lyric breakdowns for a few days before Kendrick dropped again, this song would have been 20 times bigger than it was in terms of how it impacted people. Not like numbers wise, really, but like the way this song would have changed people's ideas of what actually took place here probably would have been pretty big, because it's a very strong song. And it's got very strong disses. He doesn't spend the entire song just dissing. Kendrick Lamar. But I will say this, that also plays into my next hot take. That's because it wasn't just him and Kendrick up until this point. It is. At the end of the day, nobody cares about anyone besides Drake and Kendrick out of this beef. But we got to remember, people were still sending shots at Drake. So excuse me, up until that point, Euphoria Head came out. And of course, his main op was Kendrick. But A$AP Rocky had just recently sent shots at him after push-ups. Rick Ross was sending shots at him the entire time. So it's like he had stuff to respond to. The whole BBL Drizzy thing was still going on. So I understand why he addressed everyone else. I kind of wish he would have just kept it to Kendrick in hindsight because it would have made it a little closer in my opinion. But I think most rappers would have lost in that moment or at least taken a very, very heavy blow. And Kendrick just kind of was able to shrug off Family Matters. Like, Family Matters was never really that big of a threat to Kendrick outside of the first 30 minutes that it dropped. Because when he came back with Meet the Grams, that was really the moment where I was like, okay, this beef's probably over. And then, of course, Not Like Us came, and that was kind of like a victory lap. But when he cut that off, that really slowed all the momentum. And I think that most rappers in that situation probably get bodied. I know that might be a hot take, but I think most, I mean 95%, like you throwing names at a wall, I'm going to say, yeah, they probably get done. Yeah, that person too. Yeah, that person too. So that was a great moment in my opinion, but overall I think Family Matters kills most rappers in rap history. But I will also say this, another hot take. I think that Rick Ross and A$AP Rocky were some of the biggest winners from Not Like Us and also Meet the Grams because they never were forced to respond to Drake. And I know it sounds weird because, again, this is Drake versus Kendrick. We all know that. I'm not saying that Drake, it was Drake versus Kendrick. But we can all acknowledge the fact that, both of these gentlemen had beef with Drake. Rick Ross dropped a whole diss song. A$AP Rocky sent some shots on the We Still Don't Trust You album. And Drake came through on this album, or on this song, Family Matters, and bodied them. He did. He spent a whole middle verse just bodying these dudes, and they never had to respond because Kendrick did all the work for him. Kendrick beat up Drake. He slammed him on his neck, put him in the ankle lock. He did all type of stuff to Drake. But it kind of made everyone forget, oh yeah, Drake did kind of snap on these dudes. And I'm not trying to sit here and like give Drake a whole bunch of credit. Let me just pull up the bars just so I can go over this one more time because I really think it's understated because these guys really got off lucky. Because if they were forced to respond to this, who knows where this would have gone, but they got bodied. Especially Rick Ross. Let me go straight to the Ross bars and pull this up. Cuz I don't understand how this didn't get addressed more. Okay, so he said Ross calling me the white boy and the shit kind of got a ring to it because all these rappers waving white flags while the whole effing club sing to it. Murder scene on your man tonight, then come to vigil with the candlelight, body after effing body, and Rick reading my Miranda rights. Those are bars. And again, he's addressing Rick Ross because of the whole situation where Rick Ross was a correctional officer. Like he's on here sending shots at these dudes and they didn't have to respond, especially again, A$AP Rocky, he has a whole verse, or not a whole verse, but a whole like portion of his verse dedicated just to A$AP Rocky. Here we go. He says, Gaz, okay, Rakim talking Ish Again, Rakim is his name. Gaz, because you hit my BM first, do the math who I was hitting. And obviously he's referring to Rihanna. If you want to talk about back in the day, Drake was with Rihanna, right? I ain't even know you rap still because they only talk about your fit again. Probably should have a kid again before you think of dropping anything again, because he's more known for his fashion, at least at the moment, because A$AP Rocky hasn't been dropping a whole bunch of music. Even when you do drop, they gonna say you should have modeled because it's mid again. Smoking Fenty, obviously Fenty, Rihanna's brand, about they should have put you on the first one, try and get it in. Ask Fring. Fring is his nickname for Rihanna. I guess when they were together, he had a nickname for Rihanna and he called her Fring. If this is a good idea, the next time you cuddle in the bed again, she'll even tell you leave that boy alone before you get your head split again. So he has a whole portion of this verse, of this song, just dedicated to A$AP Rocky and Rick Ross with very, very interesting disses. Like people were gassing up, A$AP Rocky talking about he hit Drake's baby mama first. He's talking about Rihanna on here. He's saying that even Rihanna will tell you to leave me alone. He's talking about how if you was hitting her back, if you was hitting my baby mom back then, do the math on who I was with. Like these are very potent disses and they never had to respond to them. There's no pressure on A$AP Rocky or Rick Ross to ever respond to this stuff. And so, in my opinion, they got kind of lucky that Kendrick did what he did to Drake because if not, if if Drake would have even came even with Kendrick, or especially if he would have beat him, people would have been looking at them like, y'all gonna respond? And that never happened. So I guess they can give, some Thanksgiving, some thanks to Kendrick, maybe send him some Christmas gifts because they definitely kind of got off lucky there. My next hot take is that Glorilla could have easily been Rapper of the Year. She's not this year for me, which I'll get to later on in the video, but she had an amazing year in 2024 and really just upped her status as a whole as really one of the hardest hitting rappers in the game, especially coming off a year where people were starting to look at her and say that she was kind of done in 2023. But in 2024, of course, she had the song TGIF. She had a whole bunch of songs that really went up. She had the tour with Meg Thee Stallion where Meg was really the 1A and she was the 1B. But I think if we were to do this tour again right now, I think that Glorilla's probably 1A. Now, I'm not saying that because Meg fell off or anything, but Glorilla's just kind of been on a heater all year, at least all 2024. She's ended the year with like 60K first week, which isn't crazy, but still, she's not doing crazy numbers, going number one on Billboard or anything of the sort. But in terms of what people are listening to, Glorilla's one of them ones. Like in terms of like going to, a function, going to the club, being on TikTok, social media, like she's a name that you're gonna hear throughout the night. She's gonna be someone where somebody says, "Hey, put on some Glorilla." A girl's gonna say, "Hey, put on some Glorilla." She's one of those names now where people want to hear her music collectively. It's not going to do super crazy numbers, at least not at the moment. She's not going to go number one, but she is a name that when you're in these hip hop circles in real life and online as well, you're going to continuously see her name pop up. Another hot take that I have is that I kind of miss Cardi B. A kind of weird take, but I really do miss Cardi B. Some of her old music came on in the car. I think the song Please with Bruno Mars came on. And I was like, man, I really do miss when Cardi B was an active competitor in hip hop. She hasn't been active in a very long time. She drops a song every now and then, I know. But in terms of her, when she was kind of on that come up 2017, 2018, excuse me, she wasn't, the greatest rapper of all time. She wasn't dropping crazy verses, crazy bars, but she was really good. I really do like a lot of her stuff. Obviously, Invasion of Privacy was a good album, even though people were like, oh, she robbed Travis Scott for her rap album of the year. Even beyond that, people still acknowledge that that's a good album. And I was just listening to her stuff, and it's really good. I really do miss Cardi B. Stuff like Be Careful, like all that stuff from back in 2017, 2018 was really amazing stuff. And I wish she was still dropping music now. I'm not saying this because, I hate Nicki Minaj, but, I really do feel like Glorilla is somebody, not Glorilla, Cardi B is somebody that could add to the modern hip-hop space if she was an active competitor once again. But that's pretty much it for the hot takes. Those are some of my personal hot takes to end it off. I read some of you guys'. Let me know what your hot take is down below in the comments as well. But we're going to move on to our next topic. And I think that it's very important that we talk about this because I think this is something that's being understated just a little bit. And I think that superstardom in rap might be dead. At least superstardom in the way that we traditionally look at superstardom. Because when I say superstar, I'm very specific. I know a lot of people use that word kind of interchangeably with anybody. They'll call anyone a rap superstar. They'll call Lil Pump a rap superstar. But when I say superstar, I'm talking about a very select few handful of rappers that meet a certain level of criteria. The first one is kind of like, having massive crossover appeal. People who aren't avid rap fans know who they are. People who sell hundreds of thousands first week when they drop an album. People who can do an entire arena tour in the United States and sell out most of the venues or a lot of the venues. Those type of artists, obviously they have to have hits as well, but I'm talking big time names. I'm talking Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Kanye West, Nicki Minaj, Travis Scott, J. Cole, and then after that it's kind of a toss-up. Maybe you can throw Tyler, the Creator, into that conversation now. I wouldn't be mad at that. But I'm talking a very select handful of people. I'm not just talking about anybody who's ever sold over 100K first week. And I think that we'll kind of get the answer to the question if superstardom and rap is dead going into the future, if Playboi Carti does not end up a superstar after this next album. Now, I know it seems kind of weird to say that, but I'll break it down as well. And I think that Travis Scott is really going to end up being the last real superstar of this genre, really. At least superstar as we've known in the past. Now, I say that Carti is supposed to be the next superstar in that if he doesn't become a superstar, then superstardom's dead, is just because of the position that Carti's in right now. Now, Carti's last album sold 130K first week, I believe, in 2020 with Whole Lotta Red. And since then, he's really only gotten bigger. He's gotten more and more fans. He's built up anticipation for his next album, which is supposed to be I Am Music, which we're just never getting at this point. But Cardi's in a position where he's really big. He just headlined Rolling Loud over guys like Future and Travis Scott, I believe. Now, obviously, there's 3 headliners for Rolling Loud. There's 3 days. But when you're the final guy, when you're the guy who's headlining the last day, that's really the headliner, right? Like, it's 3 headliners, but that's really the headliner. So he was chosen over Travis Scott, and he was chosen over Future, 2 really big names within the rap space. Now, that doesn't mean that he's bigger than them, but that just goes to show what type of momentum and what type of anticipation there is for Playboi Carti in this modern era. So Carti has built up a whole bunch of hype over the last 4 years. He's done features with Kanye West on his projects Donda and Vultures. He's done other features as well. He's dropped some snippets here and there. And then as of recently in 2024, he dropped 6 full songs, I believe 6 or 7, with only 2 of them ending up on streaming services, but the rest being on Instagram. But regardless, he has a lot of hype right now. And I think if Carti doesn't sell around 250K, then I don't know if we ever see this as a genuine thing that can be done by like an upcomer again. I don't know if we see that again, at least not in the near future, if you get what I'm saying. Carti right now also is supposed to be going, he was said to be going on tour after this whole album comes out or whatever, and there's supposed to be a tour with Opium. And if that tour doesn't sell out NBA-sized arenas, again, I don't know if we ever see somebody get to this point, because if you look at Carti right now, he's built up an all-time level of hype within the rap space. Like, the level of hype that he has right now is unmatched by anyone really going into an album. Even like the top guys. Obviously, Kendrick just dropped an album with no announcement before it happened. Whatever. You get what I'm trying to say. He didn't have an announcement before this album came out. But Lil Baby right now is about to drop an album nowhere near the hype that Carti has. Who else dropped an album this year? I'm trying to think of some big names. I will say Tyler, the Creator, had similar hype, but Carti's has been building up for a very long time now. Like, the amount of just attention that's on him right now and expectations that are on Carti right now is unmatched, and we haven't seen this in a very long time, maybe since around like Lil Baby in 2020. So if Carti doesn't end up becoming a superstar, I don't know if anyone else is going to do so. And that's not because the genre is dead. I just think it's because the genre is broken into so many different pieces right now, right? My genre is that the expansion of the internet and rap as a whole has kind of like decentralized hip hop and split the audience so much that there are so many different bubbles of things going on right now that we don't have to come together as a collective and kind of just tout a few guys as like, oh, this is next up for all of rap. There are guys that are next up, but they're not next up for every single person in rap and hip hop right now. And that's why it's a lot harder to become a superstar if you aren't already one. Like, my theory, or not my theory, but like my idea is that there's less collective listening to hip hop than ever before in history. And what I mean by collective listening is like the radio or, BET music video of the year stuff, like where they're just showing, or like BET where they're just showing music videos, or MTV where they're showing music videos. There's no collective listening to hip hop anymore. Very rarely is everyone listening to the exact same thing at this exact same time, not by choice, if you get what I'm saying. Like, it's hard to get one thing in front of everyone's eyes in 2024 because we get to do what we want. Like, with streaming services, we get to do what we want. The only thing that you can say is really like kind of similar to radio back in the day is maybe like big playlists like Rap Caviar. But even Rap Caviar has nowhere near the power or influence that radio did 15, 20 years ago, right? If something was on the radio, that was kind of like, that was just what we listened to, right? We got in the car, turn the radio on, oh, okay, I like this song. Or we turn on specific radios, maybe, iHeartRadio, or maybe you go to Pandora. But like, as a whole, there was kind of a collective few rotation of artists or songs that we just didn't have a choice. We just heard. We didn't really get to choose to hear some of the things that came on the radio. Like, for some reason, this song is going to stick out to me. Maybe it's just because I grew up on the west side of the country, not necessarily California, but the west side in Arizona. The song Toot It and Boot It by YG. I heard that song 400 times a year. Whenever I got into the car, I heard that song. Even still to this day, sometimes they play it on the radio. A song like Drink in My Cup by Kurt Cobain, I heard that song all the time on the radio. Not by choice, it was just what was on the radio. And right now, we don't really have that. Those were two really weird songs to say, to throw out there. But like, that doesn't really exist in the way that it does. There's no way you can collectively get everyone together and put something in front of them the way you could in the past. Of course you can. You can try. You can pay for, people to promote your music on TikTok and stuff. Labels can make try to make a TikTok trend. That's really the best way to do it because TikTok is where everyone is until they ban it, I guess. But there's no real collective thing where you have to pay attention to it in rap. Everyone gets to do their own thing. Everyone gets to listen to whatever they want and stay in their little bubbles. So as a whole, it's harder to get everyone together to boost you up, right? So everyone ends up in their own individual bubbles and their own individual groups, but that's really not a bad thing to me personally because we're getting a lot of really good music out of these groups. We're just not seeing the numbers that we used to with rap, and I think that's part of the reason why the numbers are down. It's a lot harder to control what everyone's listening to, and it's entirely possible to have one part of hip-hop bubbling up and have no idea about what's going on the other side. Like, it's entirely possible that if you are somebody who's really big into, kind of more club scene music, guys like Bossman D-Lo, maybe a Boston Richie, that side of things, even though Boston Richie's a predator, that side of things, if you're more into that type of music, it's entirely possible to be like, man, Bossman D-Lo's next up. Like, this dude's fire. He's going crazy. And I have no idea that Ken Carson is over here going up as well. It's entirely possible to be a hip-hop fan and completely miss out on these massive pieces of the genre because the genre is just so big and there's so much going on. Very rarely can things come together. And that's why I say if Cardi's able to do it, then maybe we will continue to see Superstardom in the future. But the way that we see guys like Drake, Kanye, Nicki, where it's like, it doesn't matter what type of hip hop you listen to. It doesn't matter if you listen to club music, street music, girl, specifically female rap. It doesn't matter if you listen to sad pain music. It doesn't matter if you listen to boom bap rap. It doesn't matter if you listen to SoundCloud rap. You know about these guys. You hear these guys' music. But when we start moving to look, okay, who's next after them? With stuff being broken down like this, I don't know if we're gonna ever see it that way again. Again, like if I'm a Ken Carson fan and I'm listening to Ken Carson, I'm listening to Osama Son, I'm listening to Netspin, I'm in that sort of universe. It's entirely possible that I have no idea what's going on with Doechii. Doechii seems to be one of the hottest rising acts right now in rap, but I might not even know who that is, let alone listen to her music. That's just how big the genre has gotten and how broken up it is in terms of just being decentralized. And my main piece of evidence really that I believe traditional superstardom is probably dead in rap is the fact that Lil Baby is not a superstar. And I again, superstar by the definition I gave you earlier, not just he's a big name, because obviously he is. He's one of the biggest in rap, but the definition I gave you earlier, selling, excuse me, multiple hundreds of thousands each week, which he's done, but selling out an arena tour in the United States, Lil Baby has not done that. Being able to go overseas and sell out arenas, I'm sure he can sell out an arena, but doing a whole arena tour overseas, I don't know if Lil Baby can do that. Being a guy with massive pop crossover appeal, he kind of has that. But Baby failed. Like the part where I was like, okay, this guy's not a superstar is when he couldn't sell those arenas in the United States. Because if you go back, let's go back to 2018, 2019, 2020, Lil Baby was one of the hottest rising stars in music, not rap, music. Lil Baby, for a lot of people, was seen as like the next Wayne. Some people were even saying that he was going to be the guy that would eventually dethrone Drake as the number one rapper in terms of like numbers and popularity and stuff. And I'm not mad at anybody for saying that because he was going crazy. He had a whole bunch of hits from 2018 to 2020. He had the virality, he had the albums, and then especially when he dropped My Turn, it was just out of this world. He had the following, he had the hype, but the moment where it was like, okay, this guy's not going to be Drake or Wayne or Kanye or any of these guys is when he went on tour in 2021. And not only did he go on tour, he went on tour with Lil Durk. So it wasn't even a solo tour. And this is coming off of 2020, the biggest year of his career. His album was going crazy. He had the number one song, I believe. The Bigger Picture was a really big song that year as well, with like the protests and the riots and stuff, all that, whatever. And he went on tour the next year and they couldn't sell out arenas with Lil Durk, who was also extremely hot at the time. So if you take this guy who has all the hype, all the cosigns from all the other rappers. He has, albums that sell over 100K first week. He has all these hits. He got put on by Young Thug and Drake. Like, he has everything that you would think you need in order to be a superstar, and he didn't accomplish that. And so once we got to that point, I was like, oh, we're entering a new era where this just doesn't happen the way that it used to. Sorry. Because if Lil Baby was put on like this and he had this exact same run maybe in 2015, maybe in 2012, he becomes undoubtedly a superstar. If he has a song that big, multiple songs, multiple hits, multiple albums, cosigns, all that, if you take Lil Baby's run and just put it back in 2013, I think he becomes a superstar. But the fact that it happened in 2020, 2021 really showed me that this is a different time. This is a different era. And the reason I think that ticket sales are so important to showing if you're a superstar or not is because we're in the era of streaming. Anyone can stream a song. It's really not hard. Like, you can literally pick up your phone. Hey, so-and-so is actually pretty good. Go listen to him. Okay, I'll give him a few listens. I didn't really like it. Move on. Like, it's very easy to stream music now. It's a lot harder to actually support people. So when people go on their phone and they pull up that ticketing app and they put their credit card information in, that's real support. That's something that you get if somebody really rocks with you, or not even necessarily really rocks with you, but they're really intrigued to see what's going on here. Why are people so hyped up about this? Why is this such a big deal? Or maybe they're not even that big of, a fan. They just keep seeing people talk about it. It's a really big event. Oh, I just want to go to have fun because clearly people care about this, so maybe I should too. That's what happens when people are putting their credit card information in and buying tickets. That's a big deal, especially nowadays with tickets becoming more and more expensive. And when somebody like Drake comes to town, he's selling out. He's selling out not only with his own fans, but with casual fans who maybe liked a few Drake songs 10 years ago and they just want something to do, or maybe even it's people who are just in the area and they just kind of want to go to get the experience. Everyone else is going, why not? It's Drake. He's a huge name. Let's go see Drake. It's an event. It's a thing. It's not something where there's going to be a bunch of available tickets. If Kendrick Lamar, he's about to go on tour. He's about to go on a stadium tour. If Kendrick Lamar comes to your city, it's not going to be, I like some of the Kendrick songs, but is it really worth $100, $150, $200? I don't know. That's not really a major conversation that's happening with everyone. Of course, some people are having that conversation, but that's not really a real convo with the masses because those tickets are going to be gone. With Lil Baby, there seems to be a bit of, okay, I like some of Baby stuff, but am I really going to spend $200? I don't know. And he had to change some of the venues he was in for his tour back, I believe in 2022, but also the tour with Lil Durk, or it was 2022 or 2023, whatever. I think it might have been 2023, but regardless, when, Nicki Minaj comes to town, there's no, I don't know, are we going to go see Nicki? No, you're going to go see Nicki, not necessarily you, but just like the masses as a whole. And that's the difference between a Drake and a Lil Baby, a Nicki Minaj and a Lil Baby, Kendrick Lamar and a Lil Baby, a Kanye and a Lil Baby. Like, even now, Kanye's super canceled, but it doesn't matter. He was doing listening parties, and it's packed. It's sold out. That is superstardom. Not just being lit, maybe having 20 million followers on Instagram and selling 100K first week. That's not superstardom. This is what I mean by superstardom. People who will get fans to open up their wallets, open up their checkbook, open up that credit card and put it in. That's superstardom. And I think that we might be losing that as a whole. Now, we're getting people who are stars within their own bubble, within their own groups, don't get me wrong. And that's cool. And honestly, I don't mind that, but I just don't think that we're going to get that major superstardom in the way that we've seen in the past. Again, like the names I was mentioning, look at Boss Man D-Lo, right? The run that he's been on for the last year and a half has been really good, really exciting. A lot of really big songs. He's in the club constantly. If you're at the club, you're going to hear his music. If you're on TikTok, you're going to hear his music. Wherever there's a gathering of people, you're going to hear some Boss Man D-Lo if they are hip hop fans, more likely than not, right? I know a lot of people don't like him, but still. Despite all of this hype that he has online, this major run, people gassing him up, he only has 4 Billboard charting songs in his entire history. I know he hasn't been popping for very long, but with the amount of songs that have gone up from Boss Man D-Lo, you would think he would have a little more. And his highest charting is Get In With Me at 49. So it's not like this dude is dominating the charts, but it kind of feels like he is with the way that people are talking about his music and the way that it's getting played. Like it feels like he's a big, huge deal. But once you get out of that specific bubble, the numbers aren't reflecting a guy who's going to be this unrecognizable superstar, or not unrecognizable, but like untouchable superstar that goes anywhere in the world and sells out. That's not what you see when you look at the analytics. When you look at Ken Carson and the hype that he has and his performance recently at Rolling Loud, it looks insane. It looks like this guy's next up. This might be the next rap superstar. Why aren't we talking about this guy enough? And you go and check Billboard, he has one charting song ever. And that's not for me to say that these guys not having a whole bunch of Billboard songs and not being in the top 10 is a bad thing. I'm just trying to illustrate the fact that these guys are huge within their own bubbles, and these bubbles are very big as well, but they're not all around stars, even in rap, let alone in music in general. So the level of superstardom is just different. If you haven't seen that Ken Carson performance at Rolling Loud, go watch it. It's insane. He looks like the next big thing. And again, he's great. I love Ken Carson. It's amazing. I like his music, but hypothetically, right, let's say this. If I were to take somebody who knew of Travis Scott, knew how crazy his shows were, but weren't that really into him, maybe listened to a few songs here and there, but couldn't recognize Travis Scott if he was walking down the street, let's just say, and I told them that guy right there, Ken Carson, if I pointed at Ken Carson on that stage and said, that's Travis Scott, they would believe me because of the way the crowd was reacting to him. He had 20, 30, I don't even know how many people were there, 20,000, 30,000 people going nuts. And if you check his performance in comparison to Lil Baby's performance, it's night and day. You would think Ken Carson is the 200,000 first week selling artist and Lil Baby's the guy trying to sell 50, 60, 70K. Like, but within the bubble of people who go to Rolling Loud, which tends to be more of that Playboi Carti, Lil Uzi, Travis Scott, like those fans, he's huge. He is the next guy up. He is the next Playboi Carti. Not necessarily, but you get what I'm saying. Like, he is the next guy up. But when you get out of that bubble, the numbers don't really reflect what you're seeing. So these bubbles are continuing to rise, but outside of these bubbles, it's just not the same as what it was. Doechie's building all this momentum, all this hype. She has 2 Billboard hits. And again, I'm not saying this to downplay what they've done. I'm just trying to illustrate the fact that we're entering a new era of what superstardom is and what being next up is, because it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not being a massive star. It's not being this guy who's selling 300K going all these places. It's being somebody with a cult fan base within a specific bubble genre of rap and really just going up in that bubble and just doing your own thing. Because all three of those people, I should say, are people who are looked at as next up, but they're not universal names in rap. My dad probably doesn't know who those people are. All 3 of them. Not saying, that they don't, they're nobodies, but you get what I'm trying to get at here. They're not universal names. And I think that the lasting power of like central hip hop, media stations, radio, like that's gone. That's gone. And I just want to compare these acts because, again, they're not underground names whatsoever. These are not underground names. These are big names. But I want to compare them to stuff we saw in the past. I want to compare it to Drake, right? Drake, when he's coming up, 2009, 2010, first major project, Thank Me Later. Thank Me Later sold 447K first week. Back then, okay, obviously those are huge numbers, even back then. But back then, that was seen as, okay, can you keep it up? Okay, that was cool. You did your thing. You did your thing, Drake. That's fire. I see you. Those are great numbers. But are you going to be here in 5 years? Are you really the next guy? Are you really next up? 447K first week was seen as, that's amazing. That's great. But how good are you really? How much staying power do you really have? 447K first week. Now, if I see 40K first week, I'm like, hold on. Who is that? Who is that? That might be the next star in rap. So it just goes to show you how different things are. That was like 14 years ago, 15 years ago now, 15 years into the future. The numbers have completely changed. Numbers don't mean the same thing anymore. The top guys in rap don't sell 447K first week. And Drake was a rookie. He was a young guy. He was an up-and-comer. Of course, he had a big name, but like he was still a guy that was trying to prove himself and still had to continue to prove himself after selling almost 500K first week. almost 500K first week, and he was still trying to prove himself. So that just goes to show you that we're in a different time and that we don't have a centralized hip hop anymore. Hip hop is not a thing where even if you listen to maybe backpack rap and conscious rap or street rap, at the end of the day, you're all going to kind of congregate and listen to these top 7 guys. No, that doesn't exist anymore. You don't have to do that. And I think that if Cardi does not become a superstar, if he doesn't sell over 200K, if he doesn't sell around 250, if he doesn't sell out these arenas, then superstardom really is never going to come back the way that we used to know it. We're going to have Drake, Kanye, Kendrick. We're going to have those guys. But once they're done, Travis, once they're done, I don't know. It's going to be very different. It's going to be a very different looking landscape for rap going into the future. But that's just something I had to get off my chest because I've been thinking about it for a very long time. And now lastly, I'm going to finish this up by talking about my 2024 Rap Awards. We can call them the Pay Awards. We can call them the Pay Awards. Excuse me. Sorry. First up, MVP, Rapper of the Year, whatever you want to call it. It's Kendrick. Like, I'm sorry. Like, there's no real arguing with it. Whatever you want to say about whoever else, it's Kendrick. It just is. You can be mad all you want. You can argue. It's Kendrick Lamar. The biggest beef of this generation, probably, maybe even ever. And he won. And he won handedly. Not Like Us is the biggest rap song of the year easily. He's going to go do the Super Bowl in about 2 months or a month. However, I don't know. It's easily Kendrick Lamar. Like, there's just no arguing. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear anybody else have any sort of consideration whatsoever. Now, if we want to take Kendrick out of the conversation, then we can start talking about, okay, well, maybe it's Tyler, maybe it's somebody else, but this is just the year of Kendrick. Like, if you're denying it at this point, you're just a hater. GNX just sold over 300K first week off of a surprise release. He had the top 7 of the top 10 Billboard Hot 100 songs. He had like 1 through 4, I believe. Like, it's Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick's the Rapper of the Year. Sorry. Next question. I don't care what anyone has to say. Tell your mama that. Comeback Player of the Year this year is Glorilla. Like I mentioned earlier, Glorilla had an amazing 2024, and if Kendrick Lamar did not exist, she would be in conversations for Rapper of the Year, in my opinion. She had the song TGIF. Her album went up, Glorious, or no, it was called, something like that. She had an album that went up. She had multiple songs throughout the year just going crazy. She also just turned the narrative around about herself, and that's something I really love to see because in 2023, people were writing Glorilla off. Especially after she dropped that Cha 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 song. That song was terrible. It was garbage. But in 2023, you saw a lot of takes of people saying things like, oh, well, since Sexy Red came, Glorilla got replaced. Glorilla can't compete with Sexy Red. They kind of fit the same bubble, and Glorilla came, or not Sexy Red came in, and after Sexy Red came in, Glorilla was gone. She was like the old toy. When the new toy shows up, she's done. And it's really nice to see her turn that narrative around because I always hated that. I never thought it was true. But regardless, she was having a very rough time and she just couldn't find anything that stuck for her. She kept throwing stuff at the wall and it didn't stick. And in 2024, we really saw her come back and really just be a major player and one of the heaviest hitters in the rap game. Somebody whose name is going to be brought up when we're at a function, we're trying to figure out something to play. Somebody's going to want to hear some Glorilla. So shout out to Glorilla. She had an amazing 2024. She's my comeback player of the year. Album of the year for me is Chromacopia. Now, this is kind of tough. GNX was in consideration. Blue Lips was in consideration. Some of the future projects with Metro Boomin were in consideration. But I think I just came to the conclusion that I liked Chromacopia the most. Obviously, the music on there is amazing. Tyler, the Creator, is one of the best rappers of all time. I don't care what anyone has to say. But I think what really sold me on this album was the feeling of this album. And I don't just mean the music, obviously the music, but Tyler, the Creator, is one of the best environment creators in rap. When he's going to drop an album, you feel it. Everyone feels it. Even if you don't really want to pay attention to Tyler that much, you know what's going on, right? He has an era, he has a theme, something that matches the aesthetic in terms of what's going on in the album. It just picks up and it's everywhere. It's everywhere. You can't escape a Tyler, the Creator drop. You might not listen to it. You might not be his biggest fan, but you know when it's coming out. And that's what I love about his music. It just puts you in a mode where you feel like you're in a moment. You feel like you're experiencing something that really, really matters. And in hip hop, that's really big. If you can put me in a moment where I'm like, okay, this is crazy. Like, I have to pay attention to this. I have to listen to this album at least 3 times, right? I have to catch all the little hints of artistic stuff that Tyler might be hiding in here. Oh, we're guessing the features before the album comes out. We're trying to decipher what he's going for. Like, when you can make me feel fully inside of an album, when you can get me into an environment where it's almost like I'm putting on a VR headset and I'm just in this other world when you're dropping a project, that's really impressive to me. And then, of course, he follows it up with the great music that's on the project. But that's why I really just enjoy Tyler, the Creator, and what he's been able to do over the last 5 to 6, 7 years now. He's able to create these environments of music that really entrap everyone. Even if you don't really want to participate, you see it, right? My dad probably knew when Chromacopia was coming out. I keep using him as a reference because he's older, right? He's an older rap fan, but he doesn't really listen to that much new stuff. So that's kind of why I keep using him as an example. But like, when Tyler's dropping, you feel it. You see the aesthetic everywhere. You see, the truck driving around, the Chromacopia truck, and then he follows it up with great music, great numbers, and he really just has a way of coming off as genuine. So not GNX. Chromacopia is my album of the year. GNX is really good as well. I put up like 300 minutes worth of, I think it was like 300 minutes worth of GNX by the time my Apple Music came out, my Apple Wrapped by the end of the year. So it just goes to show I was listening to it a lot. Blue Lips was another great song. And I know I'm only mentioning West Coast albums right now, but I guess the West Coast just had a really good year in 2024. So shout out to the West Coast. I also want to throw in some of the future stuff, specifically We Don't Trust You, the first project. Very good, but nothing that was blowing my socks off necessarily. So, yeah, album of the year goes to Chromacopia. And like I mentioned earlier, moment of the year is going to be the last little award I give, our last pay award. The moment of the year is Kendrick dropping Meet the Grams 30 minutes after Family Matters, because that was just an insane moment. And you really just had to be there. Like, when I'm talking about moments in hip hop, maybe 20 years from now, or I'm talking about stuff in rap to my kids maybe one day, I think this is going to be one of the ones that I mentioned, because I remember, of course, we're in the heat of battle. Kendrick just dropped Euphoria. It's looking kind of shaky for Drake. All right. I'm like, oh man, Drake's in trouble. And I just remember that night, that Friday night, there were rumors beforehand that Drake was going to drop, and Drake starts sending out texts to streamers. He sends a text to, I believe, Academics. He sends a text to Casanat, stay on stream. So we like, oh, it's happening. So we're excited, right? I actually was going to the movies at the time. I don't remember what movie I saw that night, but I remember I was going to the movies, and maybe 10 minutes before I was about to leave, he drops Family Matters. And I'm listening to it, and I'm watching the visuals of the Good Kid, Mad City van getting crushed, and Drake is going crazy, Dave free, all that. The final verse of the song, which was really my favorite, and Drake's just going crazy. So I'm like, oh my God, okay, we got a battle. Now we've picked it up, okay? Because Push Ups was cool, Like That was cool, Tailor Made was whatever, but like those were just kind of like feeler shots. You've watched a boxing match before. The first round and a half is typically just, okay, what's his game and what am I going to do to respond to that? That's typically the first like round and a half, 2 rounds of a boxing match. And so it felt like we were finally getting into like the apex of the beef when Kendrick dropped Euphoria. And I was like, okay, we're here now. All right, we're in it. We're here. And then he comes back with Family Matters, and I'm like, okay, this is getting good. And I was listening to it. I listened to Family Matters maybe 2 times, 3 times, because it's a long song. It's about 7 minutes. I listened to it 2 or 3 times. And as I'm in the car going to the movies, I start freaking out because I'm looking at YouTube, and I check Twitter, and they're like, Kendrick responded. I'm like, what? Like, there's no way. Like, what did he do? Drop a freestyle? Like, how? And I go, and Meet the Grams is sitting there on his YouTube page. And I play it. And to counteract Family Matters, because Family Matters is very up-tempo, it's very high pace. It kind of has not necessarily a jovial feel because it's a diss song at the end of the day, but there's kind of like this upbeat, like gym music type of vibe where it's like, okay, we going, yeah, drop a 50 bag. And then we get into dun, 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 dun. And I'm like, oh. And it was really just a momentum killer as a song, really, because coming off of Family Matters, which most people probably did, they probably went straight from Family Matters to Meet the Grams. You hype, you like, oh, he talking crazy. And then it gets to Meet the Grams, and all of that hyped up energy, all of that yo mama joke type of energy that was on Family Matters is sucked out the room. And it's Dear Adonis, and you're like, what? and it just gets darker and darker and darker as you get into the song. And that was really just like what are those things from Harry Potter? I think it's called a Dementor, where they like suck the happiness out of you or something like that. They're like the guards of like that prison Azkaban. They like suck your like life spirit. That's what it felt like. It felt like somebody just came by and just like sucked the spirit and the joy in the room away. And he just completely stamped the release. Now, I will say again, Family Matters was a great song, but just that moment in particular was really what sealed the deal, because it didn't allow that song to marinate. It didn't allow that song to spread within the people to post the lyrics. Ooh, when he said this, what did he, ooh, when he said, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. And I kind of realized it was kind of one of those moments where it was just so well played that you couldn't do anything but clap your hands. And I think Drake kind of did that in a way as well, where he saw that and he was just like, damn. That was a good move. I can't. It was one. When you get scored on in basketball, sometimes you like that was kind of a lucky shot, or that was on me. I played bad defense. But it was one of those things where you play perfect defense and they hit the shot and you just go, it went in. Like, there's nothing you could do. Especially because like that was supposed to be the red button, I believe, right? Jake was hyping up, oh, red button. I'm gonna drop the red button. When I drop the red button, and after he dropped Family Matters, he posted like a picture of an owl, like, or looking at the red button. But yeah, that was just kind of it. And it was a thing where like Drake immediately after is like, oh, well, if somebody can find my daughter, and of course, in hindsight, oh, he's rapping about a fake daughter or whatever. But we're talking about that moment when we're talking about just what happened in that time and what we were dealing with in terms of knowledge then. That was really wild. Especially me as a content creator, I know how long it takes to upload a video sometimes, right? Sometimes it takes hours upon hours just to upload it, even once the project is finished, right? I'm not even talking about actually doing the video or making the idea, writing the script, any of that. Just in terms of the product is now done, let me upload it. That's a long time. And so Kendrick having this saved up was just the coolest thing ever. I'm sorry, like I know it sounds like I'm glazing, but it was just the coolest thing ever that I've seen in a rap beef, because it was so strategic and it was so smart and it was so well played to really stamp on that release. So yeah, that's easily the moment of the year for me, and that's going to be something that I never forget. I remember being in the movie, not giving a damn about what was going on in the movie, and just freaking out the whole time. Couldn't believe that Kendrick cut off the release like that. So that's my moment of the year for 2024. But overall, I think that this was a pretty solid year of rap. Some strange things went on, especially if you're a Drake fan. I am a Drake fan, but like a Drake stan, right? But overall, pretty solid year of rap. But if you made it this far to the end of the podcast, I appreciate it. Let me know how you feel about down below in the comments. Let me know how you feel about that superstar conversation, because I think that that's one that we really do need to start having a little bit more within rap. But overall, give me some of your hot takes from the year, some of your awards from the year, whatever you got to say down below in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I go by the name of Pay. Have a good day. Be safe. Be blessed. Peace.